but we haven't caught up with him in quite some time. It is Matt SCHNEIDMAN of The Athletic joining us this morning. Matt, thank you for taking the time. Good morning, and how do you feel about Tausch's phone auto-correcting your name to Schnitzel every time he texts us about something you say or write?
I don't mind that. Recent subscriber. What have I been doing for the last 3.5 years?
That's
I mean, it's you, it's name, it's Wilde for a time. It's a long time coming, but I've come around. I love what I've had so far. I highly advocate for anyone to subscribe to The Athletic. Tausch.
Yeah, Matt, a quick question. Do you ever get Jason out for I know he doesn't drink, but do you ever get him out? Because he's on vacation. We're thankful that he's taking a vacation. But socially, I wonder what he does. Do you ever get him out?
Your guess is as good as mine.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If I were to ask him to hang out outside work, he would say, I have gymnastics practice to go to or soccer. He's got much better things to do than hang out with me and Domovsky and Huber outside the walls of 1265 Lombardi Ave. So your guess is as good as mine. And if you don't know, given how long you've worked with him, then there's no way I know.
Yeah, I just wonder, if you said, I would love for you over the course of this week, and I don't know if you're up in Green Bay, you're probably on vacation too, just to say, hey, let's go mini golf. Because I'm trying to think, I always press him on hobbies because he has none outside of watching his kids' gymnastics and softball and everything else. What would be something that you could get him out? Because is there something you could get him to go do? Because I know at a certain point you ask, and when people say no, you just stop. But there has to be something that you could get him to go do socially.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm big into the recreational sports. I play in a sand volleyball league. I like to go bowling.
Yep.
Mini golf, definitely. To be honest with you, I didn't know he was on vacation. I thought he was just making too much for you guys, so you cut him and you'll sign back for the vet min before.
He's one of those mid-level exemptions, yeah.
I think maybe bowling might be the right choice, but again, I don't know how good his knees are. I know he's sometimes a little self-conscious about his legs showing because they're so muscular, so I don't know if that would be the right thing. And they're so
pasty. Yeah, they're so pasty,
I mean,
he
did just tell us a slip and slide was too dangerous of an activity.
Yeah, he won't let his kids get a slip and slide. Yeah, so we have a lot of things we can work on with Jesse. The Green Bay Packers have a lot of things to work on, and I just made a statement, and I'm looking at things. I was, debating who is the number. I think Jalen Hurts is unanimously the best quarterback in the NFC. I don't know anyone that's argued that point otherwise. But then I look at the rest of the list, and I just made a statement thinking if Jordan Love is not viewed as a top 5 quarterback in the NFC after this 2023 season, I think we're in trouble as Packer fans. Do you think that's an unfair expectation for me and for Packer fans to have, that Jordan Love would be viewed as a top 5 guy in an NFC that is very weak at the quarterback position when you look at it holistically?
I think that might be a little unfair and strict because, listen, I think what this season is about for Jordan Love is proving that he can't or that he won't lose the Packers games. I'm not saying he has to be a game manager, but I think it's unrealistic to say he has to go out there and prove to be the reason the Packers win, like Aaron Rodgers has done for so many years. If he can just not throw games away, do his job, not make back-breaking mistakes, and give the Packers a reason to say, you know what, let's see a second year of this. Or even say he's the guy after 1 year. I think that's a reasonable expectation. Top 5 in the NFC might be a little strict, especially because you have quote-unquote proven guys like, Matthew Stafford, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff. Who knows what Kyler Murray is going to come back and do? Derek Carr. Yes, you want Jordan Love to be better than those guys in the long term, but I think to expect him to be better or even in the top 5 after just 1 year might be a little unrealistic, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
Top 10, I would say. If he's not in the top 10, then maybe is a reason for concern.
You're not alone, Matt. Our early poll returns 69% of 200 votes early on saying it's unfair to expect the top 5.
It just feels like to me Jordan Love is not a rookie. I know he has not played a ton,
Right.
But there's decisions that have to be made. And when you're talking about if you're going to be the 10th or 11th best quarterback when there's only 16 quarterbacks in a spot where there is a lot of openings, you're talking about next year having to make a decision of, am I going to pay this guy Daniel Jones type money, 40, 45 million a year, or I have 2 first-round picks that we can use to get a new guy to reset as a rookie. If he isn't solidified himself, I guess if you want to go top 7, if he's not one of the best in that conference or at least trending that way, the Green Bay Packers will have an interesting offseason next year to try and figure that out. If he doesn't show those signs, it's almost worse. If you almost would rather him be really bad or good, really good, than be in that middling area with which what the New York Giants had to deal with in trying to figure out how to pay Daniel Jones.
How does that compare to what you expect, Matt? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think trending that way is a good way to put it, and I think we can compromise on top 7. I'm looking at the teams in the NFC now: Hurts, Daniel Jones, Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Goff. Forget the NFC South besides Derek Carr. Maybe Geno Smith after the year he had, Kyler Murray. Who knows if Brock Purdy's going to come back and play like he did the second half of last season in Stafford. I mean, I think it's fair to say, maybe this is a fair compromise, if Jordan Love is in the top 7 or 8 and trending like he can be a top 5 or 4 guy by the end of year 2, then Packer fans should not be worried. If we're sitting here at this time next year and we're saying, ooh, he's kind of on par with a Desmond Ridder or, a Sam Howell, and the Falcons and Commanders came nowhere near the playoffs, then it might be time to worry. Or it should be time to worry if that's the case.
Joined by Matt Schneidman of The Athletic on Wilde and Tausch. Jesse Nelson in for Jason Wilde today with Tausch. Ryan Wollersheim is our producer. So how do you think, Matt, that Jordan Love stacks up against the other quarterbacks in the NFC North? We had a quick conversation about Kirk Cousins earlier today, asking if he's the second best quarterback in the entire NFC. But we saw a conversation on Get Up last week that Jared Goff and Justin Fields are both quarterbacks that the panelists there would take out of any quarterback in the NFC North. Where do you think Jordan Love, when this season concludes, where do you think he'll stack up against some of those other guys that are up and coming or that are solidified already within the division?
I think it's fair to want him third in that division just because of the sample size. Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff, although they have accomplished a significant amount in their careers, it's nothing too grand. I mean, I understand Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl, but if we're looking at the grand scheme of things, it's not too much. So you want, in the long term, Jordan Love to be better than both those guys. Regardless of what he does his first year, short of winning a Super Bowl, maybe even getting to an NFC Championship game, I don't see a situation where we can sit here, 7 months from now and fairly say Jordan Love is already better than Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins. Could we sit here and say he's better than Justin Fields? If Jordan Love goes and beats the Bears twice this year, I understand it's not quarterback versus quarterback, and that's something Aaron always professed. It's me versus the other team's defense. It's not me versus Patrick Mahomes, whatever you want to call it. I think it's far more realistic to sit here 7 months from now and say, okay, Jordan Love just helped the Packers to the playoffs. Bears aren't in the playoffs again. Jordan Love's already better than Justin Fields, even with Fields having a larger body of work. So I think it's realistic to want and expect even Jordan Love to be third in the NFC North after this season. And then for Packer fans' sake, hopefully first after 2 seasons, just from a sense of what we have to work with sample size-wise.
Matt, we've got some more we want to dive into with you. I know Jason never has anything going on. Are you okay to stick around for another segment with us?
Absolutely. I'm still in Green Bay. My favorite weather, rain is out today. I'll chat with you guys as long as you want.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep you around then. Matt Schneidman of The Athletic. More Packers conversation continues next. Schneidman of The Athletic, continuing our conversation as we talk all things Green Bay Packers. A lot of Jordan Love heavy stuff in our first segment. If you missed it, you can always subscribe for the Wilde and Tausch podcast on Wisconsin On Demand, brought to you by Gruber Law Offices. Thanks to David Gruber and his entire team for being a proud partner of Wilde and Tausch and our podcast on Wisconsin On Demand. Gruber Law Offices, one call, that's all. So, Matt, I want to ask you this party question that before we forget to do this, because I've got some questions about the Packers' expectations for the season and Jair Alexander and some other fun stuff. But we started the show today. Tausch was at a graduation party over the weekend, and he is now officially in for the Irish goodbye, leaving any group setting. Are you in or out on the Irish goodbye, or as one of our texters said, the mystery dip, where you mysteriously dip out from the group at any given point? In or out on that?
You guys must have had a camera on me this weekend because I found myself in a very similar situation on Friday night. I am out on the Irish goodbye, but I don't think it needs to be a situation where you go to everybody there to say goodbye. I think as long as you say goodbye to one person, that's all the respect you need to give to the people there. There was about 15 people at the gathering I was at. I kind of just hit a wall around midnight, wanted to walk home, and I said to one person, I'm out of here, see you later. I don't need to spend 5 minutes saying goodbye to everybody, them trying to start conversations with me. But I also think if you just leave and everyone's like, where did Matt go? I'm not saying it's rude or disrespectful. I just need, when they say, where did Matt go, one person at the party to speak up and say, oh, he left. That's all.
So you just need one person on your side.
That's it, yes.
Yeah, I think it's just
interesting approach.
The Midwest approach, you don't want to make anyone feel bad. That's the gist of what I've come to the conclusion of. And there's going to be lingering on both sides of it. So we've come to that conclusion. All right, Schneids, first, does anybody call you Schneids? Is that not, is that what does Wilde call you? Matt?
That's a good question. Now that I think about it, I think he calls me both. You know, I've had different nicknames throughout my whole life.
Schnitzel.
Throughout my whole childhood, it was Schneid because the movie School of Rock with Ned Schneebly, Professor Schneebly. I was professor because I was a point guard in basketball, so the street baller, the professor, and also Professor Schneebly, so it was kind of 2 in 1 there. But I've heard everything in the book.
Okay, all right, Schneidly. So when you're looking at this entire Packers roster and kind of where you're at, Mercedes Lewis just came out. I just saw his quotes that he still wants to continue to play. Where are you most intrigued about the potential? Because there is a lot of unknowns, starting with the quarterback, but the tight end position to me is the most interesting because you didn't get a ton of production last year, and you have all of these young guys that are coming in, and everybody, again, in shorts, raving about where their speed and everything has improved. That's where I'm most intrigued. Where are you?
I agree with you. I would say my questions about the safety position are less intrigue and more worry because of the lack of proven options there with no Adrian Amos, especially given what Darnell Savage and Rudy Ford did last year and how mediocre they were, I would say. I think that's a fair way to put it. But in terms of intrigue, I would definitely say tight end. Because, listen, it's not attractive to your casual football fan. Obviously, there aren't many of those here in Green Bay, so they understand how important a blocking tight end is to an offense, especially with how often coaches and players sang the praises of Lewis over the past 5 seasons he was here. I'm no Brian Gutekunst. There's a reason I'm talking about the Packers and writing about them instead of running a team because he knows way more than I do. But I think there would still be people inside that building who would want Mercedes Lewis. Not because they're not high on Tucker Kraft or Luke Musgrave. Those guys could be great players. But because there's maybe nobody in the NFL at the position who can do what Mercedes Lewis can from a blocking perspective. It wasn't just words that players and coaches would say about him. You would see it on tape. And the occasional catch even, it gave us stuff to marvel at. So, listen, I think there's a lot of intrigue there because of the high upside from a pass-catching standpoint with the 2 rookies, but also because there still seems to be a little bit of a void with a skill set in the blocking department that has been so important here over the past half decade.
Yeah, and this is the part that I don't fully understand, because I know they're not using the term rebuild, but there's definitely a youth movement and getting cheaper at certain positions. But if you're going to lean on the running game and you bring Aaron Jones back and you decide to bring David Bakhtiari back, which I was surprised that they gave him basically full freight back on the contract that he signed, why not? Mercedes Lewis is not going to be expensive. You know your head coach loves him. You know that he's still a really good run blocker, and it's not going to cost you a ton. And by the way, very good. A pro's pro. Everybody raves about him. So if you're Brian Gutekunst, what is your rationale for not bringing him back?
I would love to know that, because if we look at the veterans they let walk, you can understand why they let Lazard walk for the amount he signed with the Jets for. You can understand why they let Cobb walk. You can understand why they traded Rodgers. You can understand why they let Robert Tonyan walk.
Adrian Amos.
To bring back Mercedes, exactly. Adrian Amos, too. Maybe him less so, just because of what they have at safety.
Yep.
But still, even him. The case to bring back Mercedes Lewis out of any of those guys is probably stronger than even to bring back Rodgers or to bring back Amos, just because of what they don't have at the tight end position and with what he brings. Now, the case to, not that David Bakhtiari was a free agent, but the case to not trade him or cut him is obviously very strong, because what's the best way to ensure a first-year starting quarterback stays upright? To give him arguably the best left tackle in the game when healthy. I understand that. But the case to obviously have Mercedes Lewis here is just a little less strong than that, still very strong. So I would be fascinated to hear Brian Gutekunst's rationale. We have not talked to him, now that I'm thinking about it, since was the draft last time we talked to him? I need to look back. But, yeah, I mean, even if we did talk to him, he probably wouldn't give you a straight answer. But I think there's still some feeling inside that building that Mercedes Lewis could do some good for us.
Joined by Matt Schneidman of The Athletic on Wilde and Tausch. Jesse Nelson in for Jason Wilde today, along with Tausch on ESPN Wisconsin and Wisconsin on Demand. Matt, one of the conversations we've had pretty much all offseason is, could the Packers still be a playoff team in 2023, given the changes they've experienced this offseason? But given the landscape of the NFC, they probably have a chance at it. Where would you set that expectation at for yourself heading into the 2023 season? Can the Packers be a playoff team?
Not only can they will be.
Wow.
I like
Whoa.
that. Just wait a second.
Whoa.
Just wait a second. We have a beat reporter that gives a strong take?
What?
Uh-oh.
What is this?
Uh-oh. All right, let's hear more. Oh, this is fascinating.
I think they'll go 10-7. That has been my prediction all along this offseason, and I'm not wavering from it. If I end up looking foolish, so be it. But I don't want to waver like maybe I have in past off seasons when circumstances have changed.
No hedging. I love
so
it.
Weird.
I don't even know what to even. I don't even know what to think right now. I'm blown away.
Do I think Jordan Love makes them better than Aaron Rodgers? No. But I also think it frees them up to win games in different ways. Now, I'm not saying Rodgers, overtook anything or stole responsibility or put things in his own hands when he shouldn't have. But I think, finally, there might not be pressure on Matt LaFleur to put the ball in Aaron Rodgers' hands. They can lean on the run game, which, when everyone's healthy up front, might be the best run game in the league. They certainly have arguably the best running back tandem. Knock on wood, when healthy, probably the best offensive line in the league. I mean, they were, according to ESPN's pass block and run block win rates, they were 5th and 8th in those categories respectively last season, with a very banged-up line, and the best left side of an offensive line in the NFL, nowhere near full strength for a consistent stretch. So on offense, yes, they're not better at the quarterback position in the immediate future, and they're very unproven at receiver. But I think they have the freedom now to explore a different formula to succeed on offense. And then on defense, one of these years, they're going to be a top 5 defense with all the guys they have, right? We've been dead wrong the last couple of years. I think the biggest question for this team, and why I think they can be a playoff team, more so than the quarterback, more so than the running game, more so than Jair Alexander and Rasul Douglas staying healthy, is Rashawn Gary. in the first 8 weeks of last season, there was only one player in the NFL with a higher pressure percentage among guys who rushed the passer at least 100 times. So basically, regular pass rushers. That was Nick Bosa, who won NFL Defensive Player of the Year. From weeks 1 to 8, the Packers were second in the NFL in pressure percentage. From weeks 10 to 18, they were 28th after Gary tore his ACL in week. Wow. He is their pass rush. If he stays healthy, this defense has a chance to be dominant.
And you add in Lucas Van Ness, who I've already said I am high on him because he already has NFL stuff as a rookie. He is going to be strong enough to bull rush offensive tackles. It's just a matter of can he do other stuff, but it's not like he is going to be a immediate contributor, even if Rashawn Gary takes a little time. But that is the big question mark. Is Rashawn Gary going to be ready to go? When is he going to be ready to go, and how healthy is he going to be? Nobody really knows that. Matt, do you think I just heard some rumblings, and again, it's just rumors, but do you think that the coaching staff and or front office feels like the way last season played out, had they went with Jordan Love, because the argument why you move on from Aaron Rodgers because they go 8-9. Do you think that there's people over at 1265 that feel like had Jordan Love played a full season, they would have been better than 8-9 last year?
I don't know. I think hindsight's 20/20, but after Rodgers' second consecutive MVP, regardless of what we want to look back and say about, Jordan Love would have given them a better chance to win or this or that, they had to extend Rodgers. They had to keep him coming off 2 straight MVPs. And at the end of the day, I think more so than anything tangible on the field, if you get rid of Aaron Rodgers after a second straight MVP season, that probably splits the building in half. As much as he pushed people the wrong way in that building at times over the years, there are definitely going to be some people inside those walls, and what the heck are we doing getting rid of him after his second straight MVP season? Mm-hmm. Now, getting rid of him after last season, you probably have a strong majority, if not 100% of the building saying, okay, now is the right time. So forget whatever it says, from a Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers on the field perspective about what they should have done, but just from an organizational culture standpoint, I don't know if it was the right decision to move on from him a year earlier than they did. Now, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that having Jordan Love last season for a full year would have gotten them to the playoffs. Would he have broken his thumb? Who knows? Would he have made some more conservative, more quote-unquote right decisions that Rodgers did not make? Who knows? It's tough to say. As LaFleur and Goody always say, hypotheticals aren't the most fun thing to talk about. Well, for us they are, but not for them.
No doubt.
At the end of the day, I think they made the right decision, both extending him and then moving on from him. And now here we are with the pleasure and benefit of talking about what Jordan Love could be now after 3 seasons, similar to how Aaron Rodgers was going into his first season as a starter.
All right, Matt, last one for me. Your article, I'm sure, got a ton of clicks. It was great. We had you on to talk about it when you were discussing kind of that timeline on the Rodgers. Any feedback did you get from any your sources or just in general that you found interesting from that article that you wrote?
I did not hear from Aaron,
okay.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Not that I care. I wrote the story. I stand by, everything I reported. It doesn't really matter to me whether he likes some stuff or not. I did say to him on our call that there would be stuff in here or in the story that he didn't like necessarily, and he understood that and he respected that. I haven't really heard from the Packers side either, so I guess it's a good thing for both sides that they weren't too ashamed with – not ashamed, ashamed's the wrong word – too pissed off. Again, it's not my job to make sure people are happy. As I said with you guys when I was on a couple weeks ago, I just wanted to present both sides of the story fairly. My biggest takeaway from that, from the feedback I've gotten, is it was time to move on, like I said, because people could see that from the outside, just from this offseason of, he's not responding or they're having trouble contacting him or reaching him, whatever way you wanted to interpret the whole FaceTime saga, people could understand from this offseason alone it was time to move on. But I think part of the reason I told the story of the last 3 years was because it was a lot more than this offseason. And I think when people realize that, there was a lot stronger sense of, okay, so they really had to move on, because this wasn't just this offseason. This was years in the making, and they really do need to see what Jordan Love has. I will say, I reached out to Aaron because I wanted to get his side. I think it's important, regardless of what I believe, what the reader believes, with regards to who's telling the truth. It's important to hear both sides. From the feedback that I saw, I think people are much more on the Packers side. It doesn't matter what I personally believe. That's why I didn't put that in the story, because it doesn't matter. But I think people came away from this not liking the way Rodgers looked, which I thought was an interesting takeaway. I'll put it like that.
Matt Schneidman of The Athletic, home run guest today on Wilde and Tausch.
Wow, I don't even know what to. I mean, strong takes, big opinions,
bold predictions.
Woof.
Left us speechless.
He's going to take Wilde mini golfing. What else? We're going to get our boy happy
whoa.
and rested. Oh, you're not.
I'll stand firm on 10-7, but I did not commit to taking Wilde mini golfing.
That's fair.
I'll go bowling first.
I hypothesized that was something you're going to do, and we love hypotheses. Thanks a bunch, Matt.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Matt Schneidman of The Athletic joining us on Wilde and Tausch.
I think Jason should go mini golfing with Matt. I think Schneidman could be a really good influence from a getting out and having fun standpoint. I think Jason, after that slip and slide, he needed a week because I think he started, and I think his kids are going to have the slip and slide up. Maybe Schneidman will go over and slip and slide with the kids.
I think, first of all, I know Schneidman would get on a slip and slide. Who's the fourth then? If you got Wilde, Schneidman, Domovsky, who's the fourth?
I think Bill Huber's their other guy.
Go play 18 at Pirates Cove or wherever they're going to go.
Hubers would be the fourth.
Huber will get in on that with them. All right. Hey, let's dissect a little bit of what Matt Schneidman had to say coming up